There's a birthday cake. It's sitting on a table covered in a plastic tablecloth, red, maybe yellow. There are people around you, familiar faces. Someone is singing, "You are small, you are happy." You've seen this moment your whole life. But here's the thing. You don't actually remember it. You remember a photograph, you remember your mother describing it, you remember being told over and over that this was a good day. But the actual moment, the smell of the candles, the feeling in your chest, the sound of the room, that's gone. Not filed away somewhere deep, not locked behind some emotional barrier you haven't found the key to. And the strange part isn't that you forgot. The strange part is that you were there, fully conscious, fully experiencing that moment, and your brain decided it wasn't worth keeping. This is called childhood amnesia, and it happens to every single human being on the planet. Think about what you knew before you were 3 years old. You knew faces, you knew voices, you knew when you were hungry and when you were safe and when something was wrong. You were learning language at a rate no adult could match. You were building a model of the world from scratch every single day, faster than any learning system humans have ever built. You were by any reasonable measure conscious. And yet if you try to reach back to that time, really reach back, past the stories and the photos and the things you've been told, there is almost nothing there. Patricia Bauer, a developmental psychologist at Emory University, has spent decades studying this exact problem. What she found is both simple and quietly disturbing. Children under the age of 3 form memories, real ones. They recognize faces they haven't seen in months. They remember routines. They show clear signs of episodic memory, the kind that records specific events in specific places at specific times. And then those memories disappear. Not gradually, not randomly, almost completely. By the time you reach adulthood, your earliest accessible memory sits somewhere around age 3 to 3.5. Everything before that is a blank, a long, full, experience-packed blank. The question Bauer kept asking was, where does it go? The first answer lives inside your hippocampus. Your hippocampus is the part of your brain most responsible for forming and consolidating long-term memories. It's the structure that takes something you experienced and converts it into something you can retrieve later. Without it, nothing sticks. And at birth, your hippocampus is not finished. It's one of the last structures in the brain to fully mature. The neurons are there, but the connections, the dense, organized network that makes reliable memory storage possible, are still being built. For the first 2 to 3 years of your life, your brain is in a state of rapid, chaotic construction. Here's where it gets stranger. In 2013, Frankland and Sheena Josselyn at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto discovered something that reframed the entire field. They weren't studying human children, they were studying mice. And what they found was this: the same process that drives early brain growth, neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, actively disrupts the memories that already exist. New neurons integrate into the hippocampus. They form new connections, and in doing so, they destabilize the old ones. They rewrite the filing system while the files are still in it. Your brain wasn't just failing to record your early life. It was growing so fast that it kept erasing what had just been written. You weren't forgetting because something went wrong. You were forgetting because something went exactly right. But neurogenesis alone doesn't explain everything. Because children don't suddenly develop perfect memories the moment their hippocampus matures. Memory ability improves gradually across years in a pattern that tracks closely with something else entirely. In 1993, developmental psychologist Katherine Nelson at the City University of New York proposed what is now one of the most influential ideas in memory research. She argued that autobiographical memory, the kind that builds a continuous story of your life, requires language to exist. Not because memory is made of words, but because narrative is how humans organize, store, and retrieve personal experience. To remember something as a story with a beginning, a middle, an emotional weight, a meaning, you need the cognitive tools to construct that story. And those tools are linguistic. A 2-year-old can experience something profound, but without the language to frame it, without words for before and after, for cause and effect, for I was there and this happened to me, the experience has no narrative shape. It floats, it fades. Nelson found that children's earliest memories shifted later or earlier depending on when they developed language. Children who developed language earlier had earlier accessible memories. The memory system wasn't the variable, the storytelling system was. This leads to something you probably haven't considered. The memories you do have from early childhood, the few fragments that survived, the scenes you can actually picture, where did they come from? Think about your earliest memory right now. How old are you in it? What's happening? Who else is there? Now ask yourself, have you ever been told about this moment? Have you seen a photograph of it? Has someone described it to you more than once? For most people, the answer is yes. Nelson's research and the work that followed it revealed something quietly unsettling about the memories we trust most. The ones that survived early childhood mostly survived because they were re-narrated. Your parents told you what happened. Someone showed you the photo. The story got repeated at family dinners, on birthdays, in the retelling that families do. And each time it was told, your brain encoded it again, not as a lived experience, but as a received story. What you call your earliest memory may not be a memory at all. It may be a memory of being told. A copy of a copy, someone else's words, worn smooth by repetition until they feel like yours. And here is where the science stops being neuroscience and starts being something closer to philosophy. Because if your earliest memories are largely reconstructed, built from stories and photographs and narrated fragments rather than direct experience, then what does that mean for the person who actually lived through those years? The philosopher Derek Parfit spent much of his career asking what makes you the same person over time. His answer was psychological continuity. You are the same person you were yesterday because there is an unbroken chain of memories, intentions, beliefs, and experiences connecting that version of you to this one. Identity isn't a fixed thing sitting inside you. It's a chain, a continuous thread of connected moments. Break the chain and the continuity breaks with it. And your childhood, your first 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of life, is a break in the chain. The child who sat at that birthday table, who felt the warmth of the room, who laughed or cried or reached out for something, that child is not connected to you by memory. There is no thread, there is no chain. Which means, by Parfit's framework, that child is not quite you, not in any meaningful, continuous sense. You share a body, you share a lineage, but the self that had those experiences, that learned to walk, that formed its first attachments, that felt things it will never be able to tell you about, that self did not survive. It simply ended. And you began somewhere after. Look at the photographs you keep of yourself as a child. The kid in those pictures was real, fully present, fully feeling. Whatever was happening in those moments was happening completely to a conscious, experiencing being. You just can't reach them. And in a strange way, neither can you. The stories your parents told you, the fragments that feel like memories but might not be, those aren't failures of your brain. They're how human identity actually works. We are not continuous recordings. We are edited narratives. We select, reconstruct, and re-narrate ourselves into existence over and over across an entire lifetime. Your childhood self didn't disappear because something went wrong. It disappeared because that's what selves do. They get replaced, quietly, without ceremony, by the next version. So here's the question that stays with me, and maybe it'll stay with you. You will never remember being a child, but somewhere in a version of the world that no longer exists, a child was living your life, feeling everything, learning everything, becoming, without knowing it, the foundation of whatever you are now. You didn't lose those memories. You lost the person who had them. And the question worth sitting with isn't why you can't remember. Who is that child if they weren't you?